Hello, everybody, and welcome to worship on this day or this evening or this morning or whenever it is that you're watching this. Thank you so much for being part of our We Gathering. Whoever you are, wherever you are welcome in this space. Today we're going to be opening our hearts and exploring the story in the Gospel of John about how many rooms there are in my Father's house. So I invite you to settle back and to be still and to be present. And I say to you, Holy One, open us up as we gather in our rooms like tombs or wombs, depending on the day. Look, the day-blind stars are all around us. Look, the cosmic Christ stands before us, calling to each of us to reach beyond, even as we stay within. This day and all days. Amen.
We gather together to worship on the land of the Wurundjeri people. As we gather, we acknowledge the wattle, the cockatoo, and this bend in the Birrong River was taken without consent or negotiation. We give our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and pledge ourselves to work alongside these First Peoples to achieve a just future for all.
Our reading today is going to be shared with us by Leslie. Leslie's one of our community members, and she's going to share with us from the Gospel of John. Thanks, Leslie.
John 14, 1 through 14. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. Jesus said to him, Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, Show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe in me because of the works themselves. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If in my name you ask me for anything, I will do it.
I've got a very special treat for you all today for our children's talk. Anna, our gorgeous Anna, our resident clown and just artist extraordinaire, has prepared a very special story for you. Let's watch.
In my mother's house, there are many rooms. She told me so. She said she was going to prepare a place for me. But where is it? Where is my room? Maybe it's under the bed. No, that's not it. What about over here? No. She did say she was going to prepare a place for me. Oh, I know. I've got it. I've worked it out. It's in here. No, that's not it. Maybe she was fibbing. My mother doesn't usually fib. Ha, I've got it. I know exactly where it is. I just have to walk around this corner and... Nope, not there either. Under here? Under here? Inside there? Maybe my mother forgot to prepare a room for me. Maybe I'll have to sleep outside. But it's cold outside. And I'm afraid of the dark. The big dark all around me. No. She must have prepared a room. It must be here somewhere. Right, that's it. I am going to look everywhere I can. What's that? It's right here. It's always been here. I just have to trust. I just have to snuggle up. I just have to have a nice cup of tea and calm down and look around. Because it's always been here. Home. My mother's home. In me and around me and beneath me and beside me. In my mother's house, there are many rooms. Room for me and for all my friends.
In my Father's house, there are many rooms. In my Father's house, there are many Zooms. There are many people, their faces shining forth from tiny squares, meeting after meeting, heart space after worship, Zoom after Zoom. In my Father's house, there are many rooms. In my Father's house, which is also my house because my Father lives with me, there are 7 people and 2 dogs and 2 rabbits, which is a lot. A lot of souls all nestling and wrestling and bumping along with a sigh and a song, and sometimes the days are very, very long. So too is the work. The work of the sweeping and the wiping and the washing and the sighing, all those people at home together. And the hot glue gun is out again because a girl who is 10 is making a cubby on the stairs. My own room, she cries, as she glues and ties doonas to banisters, and her mother sighs. It's time to pack up, sweetheart, it's getting dark. We can go to the park and we can do all this again tomorrow. In my Father's house, there are many rooms. When I was little and I first heard this passage, I had this image of all the dead people popping their heads out of a corridor of doors in their very own private rooms in heaven, like the catacombs, and they would be waving to me, the dead, as I walked down the corridor on my way to find my very own special room. It was a cheerful and kind of creepy image. And I wonder now if maybe this wasn't exactly what Jesus had in mind when he said these words, because perhaps the key to this passage does not lie in architecture, but actually in the word abiding. Abide in me. This passage comes to us from the Gospel of John, and it's part of what is known as the farewell discourse. In these discourses, Jesus speaks with the authority of one who is already risen, already victorious, and there's no doubt in his voice. Mainly because the writer of the Gospel of John did not want to give the faithful a frightened Jesus, or a Jesus like the one, for example, in the Gospel of Mark, all rough-hewn and furious and flinging himself on the ground in terror at his probable fate if he keeps fighting the powers that be. No, this Jesus, John's Jesus, is full of fact and authority and does not waver when it comes to definitive answers to theological questions. In my Father's house, there are many rooms. It's often read at funerals, this passage. It's a way of comforting the mourning that their loved one has gone somewhere, and that one day they too will go to that somewhere and they will meet their loved one there, floating in the middle of the air, and that all shall be well. But of course, some would argue that the whole point of what Jesus is trying to do in this passage is to wake his friends up. To wake his friends up that abiding with God does not start with death. It's always been a thing. Abiding with God has always been a possibility, an invitation. And that Jesus has always lived with, abide in me, abided with God. In a house with many rooms. Because God is, of course, within and around him in this moment. Just as God is within and around every single one of us. So this passage is perhaps not so much about where we live in the afterlife, it's about where we live in the present. So much more challenging. Profoundly challenging, because most of the time, most of us are, well, we're not abiding with God, are we? We're abiding instead with our own chattering monkey minds filled with decision and revision and petty pains, as well, of course, as the deep grief and the anxiety and the ambition and the desire. So many things to think about. This question of whether or not we abide in God in this moment and every moment is perhaps the central question that Jesus is waking us up to. Can we walk on the way with him right here, right now? This moment, Jesus is trying to tell us, this moment is all there is. This is it, this breath, this cup of tea, this moon in a light blue sky. This cubby on the stairs, this phone call to a friend, this sitting by the bedside of a mother as she sails away. This is it. This is the good stuff. This is the God stuff. And as the poet David White would say, our great mistake is to act the drama of our lives as if we were alone. As if there was no grand array, no swelling presence, no chorus crowding out. Thank God, our solo voice. Our great mistake is to feel abandoned and to deny the intimacy of our surroundings. And then he says, put down the weight of your aloneness. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing. Even as it pours you a drink, the cooking pots have left behind their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. And all the birds and the creatures of the earth are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. In my Father's house there are many rooms. This weekend just past, the people of Spain were allowed out of their homes for the first time in 50 days. People in Lycra poured out of their rooms and hit the roads and the hills and the boulevards and the beaches. Children held their parents' hands and looked up at a blue bowl of sky for the first time in 7 weeks. Lungs filled with fresh air, bodies cramped from indoor confinement, stretched and sung in the sun. We are so happy, one woman who was interviewed said. Everything is amazing. These people of Spain are awake to the grand array. They are no longer filled with the weight of their own aloneness. They have flowed out of their many rooms and their millions of Zooms and their chattering heads and their weeping on beds, and they have joined with the swelling chorus of the family of humanity. And everything is shot through with the glory. It always has been. But we've been too distracted to see. Abide in you and abide in me. And all of us in our many rooms are abiding in the kingdom of God in this moment, if only we can stay awake to this truth right now and when this crisis is over, this eternal and glorious truth. Now, P.S. In this reading, there are the words, "No one comes to the Father except through me." This passage is one of the most controversial passages in all of Scripture. And according to scholars from such places as the Jesus Seminar, Jesus probably never ever said these words. It was the writer of the Gospel of John who imposed these words upon Jesus, who put them into his mouth. These words have excluded and damaged and destroyed. But according to people like Richard Rohr, the cosmic Christ, who is so much bigger and older than either the Jesus of Nazareth or the Christian religion, the cosmic Christ is whenever the material and the divine coexist, which is always and everywhere. So therefore we can rest easy in these words of John's Jesus. We can see them as pointing to a bigger truth. Now there's a whole other reflection in this passage, which we are not going to do today, but I just didn't want to leave these words hanging in the air because they have been and they can be incredibly dangerous. So that's my PS. So many of you know Paul who moved up to Woodend but is still part of the heart of our community. And I asked Paul if he might share a hymn with us today. So let's have a listen to that now.
Christ be my leader, by night as by day. Safe through the darkness, for you are the way. Gladly I follow, my future your hands. And darkness is daylight when you God are there. Christ be my teacher, an age as in youth, drifting or doubting, for you are the truth. Grant me to trust you through the shifting of sands. Doubt cannot daunt me, in you, God, I stand. Christ be my Savior, in calm or in strife, and death cannot hold me, for you are nor darkness, nor doubting, nor sin in its stain can touch my salvation. With you, God, I reign.
Our prayers today are going to be shared to us by Wendy. I asked Wendy if she would be willing to open her heart and her home and invite us in for some space of deep listening, and she said yes. So let's join together and pray.
On this extraordinary Mother's Day, we thank God for the gift of mothers. This year, we are grateful to be able to escape the confronting commercialisation of this day, to be spared the potted chrysanthemums and perfume gift packs, the unwanted chocolates, the superficiality and sentimentality usually associated with this day. Paradoxically, at a time of such threat, fear, and universal devastation, we have time to reflect on the phenomenally important role our mothers, all mothers, biological and acquired, play in our lives. We reflect and give thanks for our mothers, our grandmothers, our nans, our daughters, our granddaughters, our great-granddaughters. Not to forget the expansive mother matrix of steps, in-laws, aunts, nieces, and cousins. We acknowledge the compassion, the care, and the creativity that has birthed us, believed in us unconditionally, loved and supported us beyond all bounds. We've learned about unstinting patience, endurance, and forbearance from our mothers. Because of our mothers, we can find humour, lightness, and fun, even in the darkest of times. Because of our mothers, we stay strong and know that tomorrow is a new day, and we can wipe the slate clean through her forgiveness and terrible memory for our imperfections. We may not be able to hold, to touch, to soothe, to care for, or be particularly useful at this time. But there are constant reminders of how our mothers have shaped us, how they are the fount of our frustration, but also our inspiration, our dislike, but also our like, and especially our love and attachment. Mothers are the lifelong template for our challenge and our cherish. Visiting my mother in her new care home on the eve of her 94th birthday, I'm struck by how rapidly she has aged during this time of lockdown. How her spirit seems to have ebbed from her, how her body is failing, how her breath is deserting her, how frail and vulnerable she has become. How I ache for her pain and can do so little to ease it. But then I turn to a young woman who could be my daughter but is not, who offers me the safety and time to really listen and hear me, who is wise beyond her years and gives me the gift of understanding and validation. And afterwards, conversations with my daughters, which amplify how deeply they love and care for my mother, their Nan, who has been such a matriarch to our family and such an extraordinary role model to them. In asking and listening, they are passing on the gift of their female heart, their mother instinct. And I can see how they are giving it back to me and to my mother, and them to a daughter, a son, a friend, a partner, even a wee kitten. And it makes me smile and be clear on one thing, that God lives in the human chain of the female nurturer. She is real. She is abiding. She is our strength and our refuge in these times and all. And for our own and all mothers, we are eternally grateful. For the suggestion of a mother prayer today, I thank my mum. And for always telling me that I had the most beautiful mother in the world, I thank my dad, who ended every prayer with "Are women."
Our blessing today comes to us from the Celtic tradition, and building on the theme of rooms and knowing that you are all gathered in rooms and may not have left your houses for quite a while, I thought we would do a Celtic blessing of the house, recognising as well that our houses are not just built of stone, but are also built of blood and bone, our houses being our bodies that house our souls. So, the blessing. May God give her blessing to the house that is here. God bless this house from roof to roof, from roof to floor and wall to wall and end to end, from its foundation and its covering. In the strong name of the triune God, may all evil be banished, all disturbances cease. May the captive spirits be freed. God's Spirit alone will rest in these walls, this day and all days. Amen.